From the former fighter stealing $200,000 worth of jewelry from a childhood friend, to the good folk of Reddit who claim they saw it coming, here's everything you need to know about former UFC middleweight fighter Karl Roberson's arrest. Here's the thing, the former fighter might be going away for 10 years. It's been a minute since Roberson's been in the news. The last we heard of him was back in 2022 after the UFC announced that they'd be dropping him from their roster after 4 consecutive losses in the promotion. Roberson's short-lived stint in the UFC was pretty memorable. He went up against the likes of Glover Teixeira and Marvin Vettori in that short time. However, since he's been released, the man's been keeping on the down low. Well, until now that is. Roberson's just been arrested along with Dathan Thompson for a December 26, 2022 residential robbery in Howell Township, where he allegedly made away with more than $200,000 worth of custom-made exotic jewelry. Prosecutors are looking at 10 years for the former fighter, but his accomplice, Thompson, might get away with a little less. Why? Because besides the fact that Roberson's committed a robbery, he's alleged to have been the mastermind behind it, plus the fact that police booked him for additional possession of a controlled substance charge and multiple weapon offenses. The robbery happened the day after Christmas 2022. Sheesh, I guess it wasn't the most wonderful time of the year for the Leonard family, who, by the way, knew Roberson pretty intimately. I'll get to that later on in the video. For now, you need to know that Roberson might be going away longer than his accomplice. Thompson was arrested without incident, and Roberson was arrested after a routine motor vehicle search confirmed that the vehicle in question was the one suspected in connection to the residential burglary. Roberson didn't really put up much of a fight when officers revealed that they had reason to take him to the station, but became visibly agitated when they proceeded to search his vehicle. That's never a good sign. In this case, Roberson had every reason to be uncomfortable with the search. Police found a 9mm defaced firearm, along with several packets of what they believe is marijuana and cocaine. The 2 charges just boosted Roberson's possible criminal record. So far, Roberson or his lawyers haven't given any public statements. I'm pretty sure, though, they're going with the "it was the other guy" defense in this one. But if you ask Ryan Leonard, the man whose jewelry they stole, he believes that Roberson was the one behind the whole thing. Sure, Dathan shouldn't get away with a slap on the wrist for breaking into someone's home, invading their privacy, making them feel unsafe, and leaving with hundreds and thousands of dollars worth of merchandise, but Ryan Leonard believes that Roberson deserves more of the blame in this case. Why? Because the two have been friends for almost 20 years. Talk about a lousy way to end a lifelong relationship, right? Leonard, who's the founder of NJF Worldwide, told Fox News that he's known Roberson since he was 18 and the former fighter was 14. The two grew up together in Neptune, New Jersey, and were pretty close. At least that's what Leonard thought. Leonard claimed that he'd just started building a home for himself and his family in Howell Township, and that he'd been sending Roberson before and after pictures of the home at every step. I'm sure he regrets doing that now, because Leonard believes that Roberson used the same videos to essentially map out his home and make away with his valuables. Roberson's GPS location also shows him surveilling the area 4 or 5 times the week before the incident. Looking back at the security camera footage, the homeowner's surprised he didn't recognize Roberson sooner. The former fighter and his accomplice were arrested separately in Neptune, New Jersey on March 27, 2023. The Leonard family security camera footage was released to the public, where you could clearly see 2 men, one wearing an orange jumpsuit and one wearing a black jacket, casually stroll through the neighbor's backyard and make their way through the Leonard family's back door before making their way to the master bedroom, where another security camera was placed and showed the man in the orange jumpsuit instinctively opening up a drawer, collecting the jewelry in a black bag, and exiting with his accomplice through the back door. You could hardly call that an elaborate scheme now, right? But here's the thing. How did the two know that the Leonards would be out of their home that day? I mean, it was the day after Christmas. Most people are still reeling from the aftermath of the day before. It was a bit of a gamble, don't you think? But the gamble paid off. By luck? Nope, because Roberson had already known that Ryan would be out of his home that day. I've heard a lot of backstabbing ex-friend stories through the years, but this one just hits different, and it affected the victims pretty hard. First of all, the fact that it was a lifelong friend and someone he trusted was awful to digest for Leonard. And secondly, the Army veteran claimed that he'd been suffering from PTSD after serving 2 tours in Iran from 2009 through 2010, and that this incident had just triggered his long-standing condition yet again. Leonard also claimed that he felt like an idiot for not recognizing Roberson sooner. Apparently, the police were able to identify the two men because someone had noticed that the brightly pink-colored shoes that Dathan had been wearing during the burglary matched the shoes he'd worn in a rap video. And once police told Leonard that they believed Dathan was with Roberson, aka the guy in the orange jumpsuit, Leonard suddenly had the light bulb in his head spark up. Roberson's mannerisms, the way he walked, carried himself, everything about his childhood friend, it all just fell into place. And when Leonard looked at the video again, he couldn't unsee it without picturing Karl there. Poor guy, this must have broken his heart, especially considering how he'd been there for Roberson since day one. Leonard had his $80,000 presidential Rolex stolen, along with $60,000 in Cuban chains apiece, and a $30,000 bracelet, among other things. None of it's been recovered. It might take the authorities a while to find the stolen items, probably because the duos have already pawned them off. But Leonard said that he didn't really care much about the stolen items. I mean, it's worth $200,000, so I'm sure he cared some for it. But he said that what hurt him more was that he'd been with Karl since day one. He said he'd been on speed dial the day Roberson rose through the ranks in kickboxing, and that he'd made him a custom pair of gloves with his nickname, Baby K, embossed on them. Leonard claimed that he never asked his childhood friend for money, not for the gloves and not for the hours he'd spend with Roberson, consulting him on making his own branding image. That's right, after the former fighter was let go from the UFC, he'd started working on creating a brand identity for himself, before presumably making his comeback to the promotion. And you know who helped him throughout? It physically hurts me to say this, but yes, it was the same guy whose house he stole from. Leonard also claimed that Roberson knew just how much his jewelry cost because he'd never be seen in public without it. That's a lot of information to share with someone, don't you think? But Leonard had a good reason. He said that he saw himself and Roberson as equals in the professional world. Just two kids who made it through Neptune together, who were now making major bank, had something to show for it, and were making the community proud. Proud, that is, until Roberson decided to screw over his friend. Well, Redditors think the former fighter was probably going through a hard time. News of Roberson's arrest was made public after Officer Ryan Jackson confirmed it on MMA Fighter. It is definitely the UFC fighter. I'm well aware of that. I'm aware that he's been released. He was lodged at our county jail for 2 to 3 weeks. I'm not sure the time frame, but since then, he's been released. You see, Roberson rose through the ranks in the world of MMA shortly after going pro in 2015. He was the winner of Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series after destroying Ryan Spann. It was smooth sailing for a while, but Roberson was allegedly in hot water with the promotion after only sporadically competing over the next few years. This included 6 canceled fights and 4 consecutive losses to Vettori, Brendan Allen, Khalil Roundtree Jr., and Kennedy Nzechukwu, after which the promotion announced that they decided to let go of the fighter. So, when news of his arrest made its way onto Reddit, a few of the commenters claimed that it might have been because Roberson was going through a pretty rough time. The promotion's not known for being pretty fair with their payouts, and Roberson's been made to forfeit percentages of his purse in the past, after he failed to make weight for 2 of his bouts, resulting in catchweight fights. He also lost, by the way. Some even claimed that it was sad how the guy who'd knocked out Spann in 10 seconds had nothing really to show for his career, besides being the guy Vettori destroyed. Still, he was once favored as the next biggest prospect in the UFC and is now facing 10 years in jail for robbing his childhood friend. That's a pretty bad stumble, I'd say. So, from Redditors claiming they saw it coming, to the former fighter stealing $200,000 worth of jewelry from a childhood friend, this was everything on the Middleweight Fighters 2023 arrest.